apa itu? Kecil banget. Suara. Mana suara? Suara aku kecil. Coba lihat dulu keluar. Lihat dulu. Ya. Nah ini yang Ratna Sri Dewi yang ada foto ini Bun dong. Bagaimana caranya?
Sana napilihan. Register. Masuk specs ya. Batch 2016 and to all coexistence between two nations.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello language educators.
We are from Magister of
English Education,
State
Islamic University Syarif
Hidayatullah.
Jakarta,
Our family,
because it is
Word chosen
learn with professionals,
best place to learn,
amazing way of learning,
qualified curriculum,
stick to Islamic values, world class quality,
study with dedicated lecturers, better career prospect,
a higher education qualification,
adequate facilities for networking opportunities.
help you to make your world better.
help you to find your way. It is the place for international students.
Fabulous.
Magister of English Education,
State
Islamic University,
Syarif Hidayatullah.
Jakarta,
Our family,
because it is
Word chosen,
Learn with professionals.
best place to learn.
Amazing way of learning.
qualified curriculum,
stick to Islamic values, world-class quality,
Study with dedicated lecturers. Better career prospect.
higher education qualification,
Adequate facilities.
Networking opportunities. Help you to make your world better.
help you to find your way. It is the place for international students.
Fabulous.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello language educators.
we are from
Magister of English Education,
university,
Hidayatullah.
Jakarta,
our family,
because it is
Word chosen,
Learn with professionals.
best place to learn.
Amazing way of learning.
qualified curriculum,
stick to Islamic values, world-class quality,
Study with dedicated lecturers. Better career prospect.
higher education qualification,
Adequate facilities.
Networking opportunities. Help you to make your world better.
help you to find your way. It is the place for international students.
Fabulous.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello language educators.
we are from
Magister of English Education,
State
Islamic University,
Syarif Hidayatullah.
Jakarta,
our family,
because it is
Word chosen,
Learn with professionals.
best place to learn.
Amazing way of learning.
qualified curriculum,
stick to Islamic values, world-class quality,
Study with dedicated lecturers. Better career prospect.
higher education qualification,
Adequate facilities.
Networking opportunities. Help you to make your world better.
help you to find your way. It is the place for international students.
Fabulous.
Biar Bobby, meski berjauhan, gue masih bisa.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello, language educators.
We are from
Magister of English Education,
Stay.
Islamic University,
Syarif Hidayatullah.
Jakarta,
Our family,
because it is
Word Chosen,
Learn with professionals.
best place to learn.
Amazing way of learning.
qualified curriculum,
stick to Islamic values, world-class quality,
Study with dedicated lecturers. Better career prospect.
a higher education qualification,
Adequate facilities.
networking opportunities.
Help you to make your world better.
help you to find your way. It is a place for international students.
Fabulous.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello, language educators.
we are from
Magister of English Education,
Stay.
Islamic University,
Syarif Hidayatullah.
Jakarta,
our family,
because it is
Word Chosen,
Learn with professionals.
best place to learn.
Amazing way of learning.
qualified curriculum,
stick to Islamic values, world-class quality,
Study with dedicated lecturers. Better career prospect.
a higher education qualification,
Adequate facilities.
networking opportunities.
Help you to make your world better.
help you to find your way. It is the place for international students.
Fabulous.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good morning from Jakarta. I hope that you are doing well amidst the challenges and the changes in this pandemic. My name is Hanifa Hifni, your Master of Ceremony. I am one of the English Education Master Program students. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's international webinar, Paving the Way for Successful Graduate Studies. This event is brought to you by the Master Program of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, supported by the Center of Excellence, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta. Before we start this event, I'd like to thank you for joining us on Zoom, and please kindly turn on your camera and make sure your microphone is mute when the speakers are speaking. So we would like to invite you to kindly turn on your camera. And don't forget to make sure your microphone is mute when the speakers are speaking. Excellencies, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to kick off today's event, I'd like to introduce and welcome the guests who are here today. The Honorable Rector of UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Professor Dr. Hajah Amani Lubis, LCMA. Good morning. The Honorable Dean of Faculty of Educational Sciences, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Dr. Sururin MAG. The Honorable Head of English Education Master Program, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Dr. Ratnasari Dewi MPD.
Good morning.
Morning. The Honorable Director of Center of Excellence, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Mrs. Maila Dinia Husni Rahim, PhD. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, and His Excellency Professor Dr. Haji Dede Rosyada MA from UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Indonesia. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Her Excellency Professor Ting Wang from University of Canberra, Australia. and His Excellency Professor Abdul Latif Stephen Cross from University Putra Malaysia, and also all of the honorable participants of today's international webinar. On behalf of the organizers, Master Program of English Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, and the Center of Excellence, once again, we would like to extend our warmest welcome to all of the guests to the international webinar on paving the way for successful graduate studies. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now to begin our event with the blessings of the Lord, we would like to invite Oki Dwi Cahya, a student of Arabic Education Department, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, to recite a few verses of the Holy Quran. Oki Dwi Cahya, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا يفسح الله لكم. وإذا قيل انشزوا فانشزوا يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات.
Nomor antrian J1.
والله بما تعملون خبير. والله بما تعملون خبير. صدق الله العظيم. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Oki Dwi Cahya, who have recited a few verses of the Holy Quran. Hopefully the event can be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen to the first welcoming remarks delivered by the head of English Education Master Program, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Dr. Ratnasari Dewi MPD. To Dr. Ratnasari Dewi MPD, the platform is yours.
Thank you, MC. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are very grateful to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for giving His blessing to all of us so that we are given hope, given the strength to be able to attend this activity in order to take part in an international webinar with the theme Paving the Way for Successful Graduate Students. Our prayers and greetings are given to our great Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has brought mankind from darkness to the brightness. Therefore, let me say some words to welcome all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank for the kindness of our Honorable Rector, Professor Dr. Amani Lubis LCMA, to give her opening speech in international webinar this morning. Good morning, Ibu. We hope you are always in a good condition and health. My salutation goes to the three honorable invited speakers who have been kindly accept our invitations to share the knowledge, experience, and also their fruity feelings. Welcome, Prof. Dede Roshada. Welcome, Prof. Tingwang. And also welcome, Prof. Stephen Eric Kraus. We are really so proud of you all. Thank you very much for your coming today. And also, my big thanks goes to Ibu Dr. Sururin MAG, the Dean of Faculty of Educational Sciences, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, for taking her time and even postponing another important activity in order to attend this morning webinar. Thank you, Ibu. Our special welcome to the Director of Center of Excellence, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Ibu Dinia Husni Rahim, PhD. Thank you, Ibu, for your coming today. And my best welcome to all the participants, all lecturers, teachers, students, and all people who have joined us this morning. Actually, the purpose of this international webinar is to better understanding about the university level learning environment, especially master students. Many are shocked by the large number of assignments, find it difficult to deal with supervisors, and even waste a lot of time in completing the thesis so that the study completion time become longer. Not only that, there are times when students feel overwhelmed, unhappy during their studies. Therefore, the master study program went to fight inside through this international webinar with the theme Paving the Way for Successful Graduate Studies. On this occasion, at the second session, we also want to show all of you who joined today the profile of the Master Program of English Education, Faculty of Educational Sciences, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. I hope this event will bring happiness to the participant, and hopefully after this activity, many of you want to continue your higher education. Of course, by choosing Master Program of English Education at the first choice, because the Master Program of English Education provide facts, evidence, not word. Have a good time watching for this rest of activities. If there are some differences in this activity, please forgive us. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ratnasari Dewi MPD, for doing the welcome remarks. Now, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to the next welcoming remarks delivered by the Dean of Faculty of Educational Sciences, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Dr. Sururin MAG. Please welcome Dr. Sururin MAG. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa bihi nasta'inu ala umuri dunya waddin. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. It is an hour to welcome our remarkable invited speaker, the first Professor Dr. Dede Rosyada MA from UIN Syarifullah Jakarta. Good morning, Prof. And the second, Professor Ting Wang from the University of Canberra, Australia. Good morning. And the third, Professor Stephen or Professor Abdul Latif or Professor Stephen Eric Ross from University Putra, Malaya, Malaysia. The Honorable our Rector of Islamic State University, UIN Syarifullah Jakarta, Ibu Profesor Dr. Hajah Amani Lubis LCMR, the all of Vice Dean, the first Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, Dr. Kadir, Vice Dean of Administration, Abdul Muin, and then the Vice Dean Student, Alumni and Cooperation, Dr. Halimi, Honorable Dr. Ratna Saridewi as the head of Master Program of English Education, Faculty of Education, Dr. Maila Dinia Husni Rahim, Director of COA, the lecturers, students, all participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As a Dean of Faculty of Education, let me welcome you all to our international webinar today, conducted by Master of English Education in Faculty of Education, UIN Syarifullah Jakarta, collaboration with COA, Center of Excellence. Our discussion today will concern to essential issue in our education system regarding paving the way for the successful postgraduate study. Ladies and gentlemen, currently our faculty have 12 study program, undergraduate, and then over 4 courses of master program, namely Master of Islamic Education, Master Program in English Education, Master Program in Arabic Language Education, and Master Program in Islamic Education Management. And the next, we will open to doctoral study in our faculty, specialists in Islamic education and Arabic language education. We aim to build excellent, competitive, and professional education institution, integrating our 4 core values, namely scientific, Islamic, humanity, and Indonesians. We dedicate to prepare expert and global scholars in education field to contribute in effective and relevant pedagogic practice. We commit to keep improving our quality and expanding our link with multinational intellectual to support global sustainable development in education. Postgraduate study help country to prepare professional and experienced human resource, meaning that the successful of postgraduate study will contribute to greater productive citizen in the future. Moreover, with demography bonus will that happen in Indonesia. Therefore, our theme today is highly important that we will discuss practical strategy and recommendation in the enhancement of postgraduate study. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate to our rector, all of invited speakers, Master of English Language Education Department in our faculty, the COA, all committee, all participants, and such this event. We sincerely thank you for all your hard work to hold this international webinar with interesting and important theme, paving the way for a successful postgraduate study. Ladies and gentlemen, Hopefully, our virtual meeting today will continue to enable the collaboration and significant change to educational improvement, particularly in postgraduate study. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All right, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. The next one will be the opening speech by Director of UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta. But before that, we would like to present our video profile or profile video of the Master Program of English Education while we wait for the next remarks or opening speech. Please, operator, you may share the video.
The Sharif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta, or UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, is established as a higher education institution that utilizes knowledge and religious matters as a way to open the world's horizon. UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta is located in Ciputat, Banten Province, Indonesia, making the college in a very strategic position because it is adjacent to the special capital region of Jakarta. UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta now runs 11 faculties and 1 postgraduate school. The Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teachers Training, as one of the oldest faculty at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, has 12 bachelor's program and 4 master's program. Master Program of English Education of UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta was established in 2009, and it's been accredited in 2014 by the National Accreditation for Higher Education. Master Program of English Education is managed by the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teachers Training. This millennial study program is open to fulfill the needs of teachers and lecturers as well as innovators of English learning in the Industrial Revolution 4.0. In the implementations of all activities, the Master Program of English Education UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta is always carried out under the supervision and directions by Professor Dr. Haji Amani Burhanuddin Umar Lubis, LCMA, as the Rector of UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta. Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teachers Training, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Dr. Sururin, MAG, Dr. Kadir MPD as Deputy Dean 1, Dr. Abdul Mu'in SSI MPD as Deputy Dean 2, and Dr. Halimi MA as Deputy Dean 3, and Dr. Ratnasari Dewi MPD as the head of the Master Program of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, who is entrusted with leading the Master Program of English Education.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to Master Program of English Education. I would like to inform you about vision, mission, and aims of Master Program of English Education. Vision: creating the Master Program of English Education become an excellent study program by integrating science, Islam, and Indonesia in Southeast Asia in 2022. The main vision of the Master Program of English Education are organizing research based on educational activities in the field of English language education, organizing community service in the field of English education in an integrated manner with other scientific fields, increasing the integration of education, research and community service in the field of English through various collaboration with government agencies and private agencies, both domestic and foreign. Aim: the Master Program of English Education aims to produce graduates who are able to solve problems in the field of teaching English through interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach, able to develop knowledge in the field of teaching English through research to produce innovative and qualified work, able to manage and develop research results that are beneficial to society and science, and gain recognition of the national and international level. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
In an effort to meet the academic needs of students, Master Program of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, has 10 permanent lectures and 3 non-permanent lectures. All of them have doctoral degrees, where half of them have educational experience abroad. The following are the names of the lectures of the Master Program of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta. Dr. Ratna Sari Dewi, MPD. Dr. Haji Atik Susilo, MA. Fuad Fahrudin, MSc, PhD. Dr. Muhammad Farhan, MPD. Dr. Fariani, MPD. Dr. Farida Hamid, MPD. Dr. Alek, MPD. Siti Nurul Askia, MSc, PhD. Kustiwan, SAG, MA, PhD. Maya Devianti, MPD, PhD. Dr. Nida Husna, MPD, MA, TISO. Didi Nuruddin Hidayat, MA, PhD. Tati Latifa Tuduria, MA, PhD. All lecturers of the Master Programs of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, besides having educators' certificates, also have scientific works published at the national and international levels. Apart from teaching, guest speakers with national and international reputations are also invited periodically to strengthen the knowledge of students and lecturers. The Master Program of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, has several compulsory courses. Lecturing is conducted in Building 1 at the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teachers Training using the teaching team method. To make the learning activities and activities of the students of Master Program of English Education, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta has some facilities including classroom, a library, courtroom, and students' administration service. Furthermore, the Master Program of English Education has excellent programs in the form of a clinical thesis, peer learners, and clinical journals. In the implementation, these activities are carried out virtually during the COVID-19 pandemic. Alumni are an important element in the quality of the implementation and development of the Master Program of English Education. The following are alumni of the Master Program of English Education at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta. What do they say about the Master Program of English Education at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Najmi Hilaliati, and I one of the alumni of Master Program English Education at the Islamic State University of Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta. My impression for this master program, I was very excited to give a chance to study at Master Program of English Education because it's very related with my previous degree. And also the lecturers there are very competent and very friendly to discuss about academic issues. For example, if we do not understand about research, and then when we met the lecturers, they are very welcome to us to discuss about that. And about the facilities, For example, like library and journal access, it's very support us to finish the study, of course, and also very helpful to finish the assignment during the study. And for right now, I am also the English lecturers at State Islamic University of Sultan Maulana Hasanuddin Banten in Serang. And my advice for all of the students over there who wanted to join this master programs, I think it's very the great chance and opportunity for you to have an experience to study here. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi, I'm Dewi. In 2016, I've got LPDP scholarship and I chose UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, majoring in Magister of English Education for my study. And in 2018, I've graduated from the university. While studying there, I have nice and fruitful experiences. I met humble, sweet, and professional lecturers. From them, I learned not only about academics but also learned how to be a better person and be a lecturer who are not only lecturing certain subjects but also educating students to be pious and humble students who benefit others in the future, especially in Indonesia. Also, the university has facilitated the students to participate in international conferences each year and publish our literature and scientific works in reputed journals. For instance, Alhamdulillah, during my study, I've got a chance to participate in 3 international conferences and publish my works in a Sinta 2 journal and an international proceedings. 4 months after graduation, I've got a call for an interview as a permanent lecturer in one of the private college in Cimahi called IKIP Siliwangi under Kartika Jaya Foundation. And here I am. Well, if you seek a university where you can learn innovative strategies integrated with Islamic values to teach English subject for your students, or if you seek a university where you can learn how to do research in language educations with professors, professional lecturers who are the experts in their field, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah has them all. So, what are you waiting for? Come and join us. We look forward to seeing you around. Bye-bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello from Malaysia. This is the 3rd year for me to work here in Malaysia. I am now working not in an educational institution, but in a technology consulting company with colleagues from various countries and backgrounds. But it does not mean I stopped getting involved in education. As a graduate of English Education program at UIN, I create fun English learning activities for Indonesian migrant workers here in Malaysia. The knowledge shared by the lecturers and the learning experience at UIN have improved and strengthened my skills, especially in English language teaching field. It was also an honor and pleasure for me to once get involved in some researches conducted with UIN lecturers here in Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam. The lecturers always build a close and good relationship with the students so that we are not only students and lecturers but also partners. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Siti Fitria, a Platform Experience Associate at Accenture, Malaysia.
And here is the ongoing student at Master Program of English Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nabi, a student of Master Program of English Education, at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. This is my second year studying at this master program of English education. Studying at this master program is very beneficial for me. The students are taught by professional lecturers who graduated from reputable domestic and foreign universities. The courses given for students are very relevant to the current situation, so that between the theory and practice are coming together. This study program also provides teaching the method, where students are taught by practitioner lecturers who engage in the field of English language teaching. Here, the students not only taught how to conduct research, but also guided by the lectures how to publish it in the national and international journals. During my education in this master program, I have published several research articles, both in national and international journals. Master Program of English Education has some excellent programs. There are thesis clinic, peer learners, and journal clinic that will help students finishing his or her thesis well and develop their own capacity. Master Program of English Education at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah, Jakarta is an excellent choice for a brighter future. That's all for me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have just watched the profile video of Master Program of English Education as one of the organizer of this webinar. Unfortunately, there is an unexpected situation for the rector of UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta to attend. Or let's open the agenda today by reciting Basmalah all together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Maaf, sepertinya Bu Rektor gabung. Kita tunggu sebentar, kita lihat dulu ya.
Baik.
Maafnya Bu Rektor gabung, sebentar kita tunggu sebentar ya. Semoga aja udah segera gabung.
All right. We are still waiting for our rector of the UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta to join and attend with us here.
Video. Oh ya.
Kalau belum ada kita mulai, tapi informasinya beliau siap untuk gabung. Atau mungkin nanti ketika ada waktu kita beri kesempatan ya.
Baik.
Terima kasih, mohon maaf. Ya.
All right, so our rector of the UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta will be here to attend with us, and later we're going to give the time for her to deliver the opening speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the main agenda. Let's just move on to the main agenda, which is the keynote addresses by the invited speakers. The keynote address will be led by our moderator, Mrs. Umi Kulsum, PhD. She is a lecturer at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Indonesia. She has successfully completed her PhD in Education and Management, University of Canberra, Australia. And her research focuses on Islamic-based school performance and leadership practice in Indonesia context. Now, I would like to invite her to lead the agenda for today. Mrs. Umi Kulsum, PhD, the platform is yours, and you can take over. There is no sound. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Can you hear now? Okay. So, gladly that Ibu Rector is already around us, and perhaps you can allow Professor Amani Lubis to open the ceremony. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Now then, we are very honored. It is such an honor to have the rector of UIN Sharif Hidayatullah Jakarta to be here with us to attend and to deliver the opening speech and to officially open the international webinar. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite Her Excellency Professor Dr. Hajah Amani Lubis LCMA to deliver her opening speech. The time is yours. Right, Professor Dr. Hajah Amani Lubis,
Thank you.
the time is yours.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer to invite me to this international webinar on paving the way for a successful postgraduate study. Alhamdulillah, thank to God that we are all in good health, Alhamdulillah, so we can conduct this webinar. First of all, I would like to, or secondly, we would like to give season's greeting that we just have the Idul Fitri, and we just also finish our fasting month, Ramadan. So I congratulate you for the Idul Fitri. And secondly, this webinar is very important and very timely because we will have discussion, inshallah, by God will, that we will also hear from the experts how to improve our educational network, and also our educational process of learning and studying in postgraduate level. So this is very important. This is very important because we are now facing COVID-19 pandemic. So we need to transform all of our life to be suitable to this condition. So after COVID-19 pandemic, it will be totally different. We often hear these words. However, people have different opinions about how to be or how to will be different. Just so people evaluate differently for things were before. How will we act after COVID-19? The answer depends on your opinion about the pandemic. So how to stay healthy and to keep our well-being and to be successful academically during or after the pandemic. This is most important topic to discuss nowadays. One can view the COVID-19 crisis simply as the consequence of a viral infectious disease. In this case, the countermeasures for after would be better prevention of infection, more effective hygiene policies, preventive measures against epidemics, the development of vaccines and related medicine, the revival of economic system or situation can better the pandemic. So I believe that the educational system and the educational environment should be also one of our concern. During this webinar, we will discuss that we should also can hinder the unforeseen obstacle that needs to be overcome in educational fields. However, it's important to view COVID-19 from the social perspective. So we seek to understand that mentally we are influenced, or we have the mentally we have also problems to keep our performance in life, especially in educational system. So we should have the learning environments, not just one environment, but learning environments in on campus and also at home. We should have keep the environment suitable for learning and also for achieving the learning targets, not to be downgraded in the future, but also we need to have measures to cope with the crisis from the first point of view are necessary. So we need to discuss more about this academically and intellectually. So I believe from this webinar, we will have a very fruitful discussion and deliberation to support the academic success of the students, and also for the teachers and lecturers and also professors. So we are very much encourage the collaboration on research and also publication and networking through academic through educational field, so that we can also develop a system as a transformation, our transformative system after the pandemic, and also at the same time we renew our educational system and our educational level, so that we can improve, we can cope with the situation and can alter from challenges and threats to challenges to opportunities and also success, inshallah. That's all I'd like to say in this morning, and I'd like to thank the speakers and keynote speakers from Australia and from Malaysia to have this webinar, and of course their experience will be useful for us. It will be, we will benefit it very much from this webinar, inshallah. Thank you very much for the organizers, and also I would like to say that a postgraduate level in all campuses is very important, and we would like to develop it. Sharif Hidayatullah State Islamic University also tried to strengthen our postgraduates, whether it's in the faculties or in graduate schools. So we should have also the strengthen to elevate the level of studying in postgraduate degree for from just to have the certificate or the license of studying after master's degree, but we would also need to give to pave the ways for the students to study more and to achieve also their doctorate. So not the magister or master's degree is just to make a habit in the students to study and to make research, but they should also complete their study to doctorate, because we need experts and also we need educators who understand the theory and practices of educational system, especially in teaching English and literature, English literature, and also Islamic studies in English. So I believe that the English can facilitate all disciplines of knowledge to be developed, inshallah. Thank you very much. And I congratulate the organizers for their success and to have this webinar. Inshallah, someday we will have a real international seminar offline, but this time we still have it online. Stay healthy. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Haja Amani Lubis, LCMA, Director of UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, who has delivered the opening speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's go back to the main agenda, and I would like to invite our moderator, Mrs. Umi Kulsum, PhD, and I will again read and repeated what I have told you before. Mrs. Umi Kulsum, PhD, our moderator today. She is a lecturer at UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, and she has successfully completed her PhD in Education and Management, University of Canberra, Australia. Now, I would like to invite her to lead the agenda and the discussion. To Mrs. Umi Kulsum, PhD, the time is yours.
Thank you, Hanifah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this seminar. I'm so glad that we can meet you in this very brightful moment. The Honorable Rector of UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Professor Dr. Amani Lubis, the Honorable the Dean of Tarbiyah Faculty, Dr. Sururin, MAG, distinguished speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I would like to describe the background of our discussion today. So to achieve the master degree and doctoral degree, a graduate student must complete their own research called thesis for master degree and dissertation for doctoral degree. After the student has completed their coursework, there will be time for them conducting a research project. The student is assigned to work with a supervisor in order to undertake a research with quality process for the best possible output as an excellent thesis or dissertation. The expectations of having a smooth running period and ending up the project with the best output is not as easy as one thinks. Based on my experience, writing thesis is like marriage. The feeling of happiness, sadness, sorrow, and some other feelings occur. But remember, to set up your goal only to graduate, there is nothing to stop you. Dealing with the supervisor, graduate student of master degree and doctoral degree program must consent some strategies enabling successful thesis and dissertation. The role of supervisor are professional roles. The supervisor concurrently may act in many roles as a coach, teacher, friend, colleague, trainer, good role model, and guide. Coaching the skill builds trust and understanding within the students and the supervisor. The specific skills of the student should be trained by the supervisor and the specialist. Besides coaching and training, the supervisor also acts as a good role model who listens and guides the student to achieve the goal. A study on the student persistence in the distributed doctoral program in educational leadership in higher education in Fantastic and Sticks 2007 mentioned that the feedback from academic advisor is beneficial and helpful for a student to succeed their thesis and dissertation. Furthermore, Nothouse in 2010 mentioned that a good supervisor requires the leadership skills, a mixture of three approaches, including technical skill, human skill, and conceptual skill to help students to producing the best outcomes. Then the questions is how student builds a good intention and interaction with their supervisor, how both parties are mutually commitments and aware to achieve the final goal, that is success of student study. Well, today we have three speakers here who are present with us. He's already with us. They will share their thoughts on paving the way for successful graduate studies as our theme today. And this sharing will be very beneficial for us, for students and prospective master students here. But before that, I would like to introduce the three speakers. The first speakers will be Professor Dr. Abdul Latif Stephen Cross. Professor Latif joined University Putra Malaysia Faculty of Educational Studies as a lecturer in 2006. In 2010, he left the faculty to pursue his interest in youth-related research at the Institute for Social Science Studies for over 6 years as research fellow. And in early 2017, he returned to the Faculty of Educational Study to resume full-time academic work. He is currently involved in a number of research projects related to youth development. His latest research centers on the role of interpersonal relation as a support for positive youth development. Current project includes a national study on youth engagement and community connectedness and the personal developmental experiences of young social entrepreneurs. Professor Latif has also been involved in a multi-year collaborative research project with the School of Human Ecology of the University of Wisconsin, USA, exploring youth-adult partnership in youth and community program settings. Other collaborative efforts has included research and consultancy work with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the International Youth Center, Yayasan Chowkit, the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development, and other public agencies and NGOs. He is a foundation member of the Center for Applied Youth Research, Tasmania, Australia, as well as an international editorial board member of the Journal of Applied Youth Studies, Center for Applied Youth Research, Tasmania, Australia. Okay, the second presenter is Dr. Ting Wang. Dr. Ting Wang is a professor of education and educational leadership and the associate dean education of the Faculty of Education, University of Canberra, Australia. She specializes in educational policy, leadership, management, and administration, professional learning communities, and teacher professional development, international and comparative education. She is affiliated with Beijing Normal University as a high-end foreign expert awarded by the State Administration of Foreign Experts Affairs, China. Professor Wang has published extensively and is internationally recognized for her research in educational leadership development in cross-cultural settings, professional learning communities, and international education. She is a founding member of the Global PLC Network, which researches PLC or professional learning community policies and practices in school across 6 educational systems. Her sustained contribution have been recognized through major institutional and national awards. And I'm proudly introduce her as my PhD supervisor during my study at UC. She is a great role model for me and provide good leadership in the process of my candidature. Welcome, Ting. And the last speaker is Professor Dr. Haji Dede Rosyada MA. Professor Dede is a professor of School of Graduate Program in UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. He is also a lecturer of the Islamic Education in Tarbiyah Faculty since 1988 until now. He was the acting rector of EIN Jambi in 2011. In 2011 until 2015, he served as Director of Islamic Education at the Ministry of Religion, Republic of Indonesia. Professor Roshada, also a former rector of UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta, year 2015 until 2019. He produced many scientific works that had significant contribution in the fields of education and teacher professionalism works. The works are, some of them are, in 2004, he produced the book Paradigm of Democratic Education, a model of community involvement in the implementation of education. 2019, he wrote about madrasah and teacher professionalism, and currently in 2020, he wrote qualitative research for educational science, and many more. Well, all right. We are going to listen to the three speakers now. Each speaker will have 45 minutes to speak and continue to the other speaker. The questions and answer session will be open after the third speaker finish their presentation. All right, let's start this session from the first speaker to Professor Latif. The time is yours.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me today. It's always a pleasure to be involved in programs with Syarif Hidayatullah Islamic University. I've been to your beautiful campus twice before. Unfortunately, this time we have to do it over Zoom, and I cannot be there personally. But nevertheless, it's a pleasure to be, an honor to be invited to your program. So thank you very much for having me this morning. Before I start, I just wanted to just clarify something. I was given a time frame of only 20 minutes, and you just mentioned 45 minutes. So I think my talk is going to seem a bit brief because I only prepared for a 20-minute presentation. So you'll have to forgive me for that. But there'll be, I guess, extra time for question and answer and interaction. So if I can go ahead and share my screen. And a belated Eid Mubarak to everyone who celebrated the Eid last week as well. Okay. Sorry, I have to close my... Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So the topic of the seminar is very interesting. And once I received it from Dr. Mela, I thought about a study that we had done actually at UPM, at my university, a few years back. I found that at the time the study was very closely related, very much related to what the topic of this seminar is about. When UPM first became a research university in Malaysia, there was a lot of discussion about the issue of postgraduate supervision, especially with students who would be embarking on research, many for the first time. And so there was a lot of discussion and debate as to what was the best approach to working with students at the time. And so we felt that we needed to do a little bit of background research to sort of understand where our students were at in terms of their relationships with their supervisors, their working relationships with their supervisors. So at a research university, postgraduate supervision is very important for the successful completion of research projects. And so we undertook a small-scale study. We did eventually publish the findings, but a small-scale study on what students at the time were experiencing in their postgraduate supervision, right? We wanted to understand from the student's perspective, what was postgraduate supervision like? What was the relationship like with their supervisors? As was just mentioned by our MC, there's been a wealth of studies, of literature that's been published on the importance of the supervisor and the relationship with supervisors in research, in postgraduate research relationships. Knowing this, we really wanted to look at it from our sort of localized perspective, what was going on in our university, to better understand the situation. And what we found was actually quite interesting. We found one of the major findings from our study was that actually when it comes to postgraduate supervision, students do a lot of management within the process. And one of the things that they actually do is they end up, in many ways, managing their supervisors, or at the very least, managing different dimensions of their supervisory relationships. Okay, so based on that study that we did and the findings, I thought that I would sort of present some of those findings today as sort of lessons learned and things to keep in mind. So whether you're a student out there or whether you're a supervisor, I think there's sort of lessons here for all of us that we can sort of think about when it comes to supervision within the postgraduate context. So if I were to ask all the students out there this question, how do you feel about managing your supervisory relationship? It seems like a very strange question in a lot of ways, because often students are not really asked about, you know, managing their supervisors. Usually it's the other way around. We think of it as the supervisor managing students, right? But in postgraduate supervision, we have to realize nowadays in most universities, especially if you are a research-focused university, and from what I understand from Dr. Mela, UIN Sharif Hidayatullah is moving towards becoming more a research-focused university. This is something that needs to be considered because students have to take a primary role in managing their own studies. Supervisors are becoming increasingly busy, more expectations in terms of publication and time away from the office in the field doing research and so forth. So the idea of managing a supervisory relationship may seem a bit overwhelming to students, right? Especially students maybe at the master's level, still quite young, coming from undergraduate study, have never really done research before. How do you feel about this idea of actually having to manage different aspects of your supervisory relationship? Do you think you can do it? That's the question. And so what we found from our students is that many of them do it without even realizing it. Okay, and there are some important elements to this process of management that I just wanted to sort of share with everyone. So the first one, in terms of managing your supervisory relationship, is to manage expectations. So it's very important that at the outset of your postgraduate study experience, you are clear or have at least some clarity what your expectations are for your experience in the program, for the research process, for what is expected of you, etc. Okay, so what are your expectations? Do you know what your expectations even are? Have you really touched base with yourself to sort of flesh out what those expectations are? And have you sat down with your supervisors and really worked out, shared your expectations? Okay, so the clearer you are about your expectations, and the more flexibility that you have built into that, the better off you're going to be. And this is what we found with our students. Those that had sort of thought clearly about their expectations and what they are expecting to get out of their experience in their postgraduate study, but at the same time maintaining that sort of flexibility along with their supervisors really helps a lot. So it's important that you communicate and set clear deadlines for completion of tasks. Okay, that's part of managing expectations, and that it tends to work better when it's done in a sort of partnership process. Okay, so doing it together really helps. Okay. Now, what I have found over the years with in the process of supervising many students is that deadlines are not necessarily something that always need to be kept. Many students don't meet deadlines, and often we as supervisors also fail to meet deadlines in terms of getting feedback and drafts back to students. And that happens, and it's okay. Again, flexibility is important, but they are important. I have found that students work much better when we have mutually agreed upon deadlines. Okay, so it can be a very effective support for students. So be flexible. And as I mentioned, don't be too fixated on a specific deadline, but try to set at least general deadlines for when things are going to be due. So when you want your drafts to be submitted by, etc. It will help manage those expectations. And the other thing about expectations is general expectations about what the process is going to be like. What is the learning experience going to be like within the process of the program? We have some within academia nowadays that think that postgraduate study is really just about an outcome. It's just about completing a thesis and finishing up the thesis. There are others who have a bit of a different philosophy, who believe that it's much more of, it should be an enriching learning experience, that students should be exposed to as many learning opportunities as possible. And, when they sort of finish the thesis in terms of number of semesters and so forth, it's not that important. The fact, of course, we want them to finish, but what's most important is the richness of the learning experience. Okay, so these kinds of issues in terms of expectations of what to expect from your involvement in the program are important to think about. And the earlier, the better, usually. So that's the first, managing expectations. And then the second, I have one more bullet. Postgraduate student being a journey, not a destination. Okay, that's in relation to what I just mentioned about thinking of postgraduate study as an enriching learning process rather than a credential or just a finished product. The second one finding that we came up with or found from our study was that managing time and accessibility is very important. Nowadays, supervisors, at least in our university, and I think this is pretty common in the field in general, most research universities around the world, there's a lot more being expected of academic supervisors. And so, people are very busy. Students are getting less time with their supervisors. The numbers of supervision, like per supervisor, number of students being supervised is going up, okay, etc. So how will you as a student make full use of your time with your supervisor? This is a very important question that you need to think about. So some of the ways to do that, when you have time with them, when you have meetings, you have fixed schedule meetings, come as prepared as you can. Have a clear agenda, take full advantage of your meeting time. Okay, don't come with some just wishy-washy idea of what you're going to talk about, and and the supervisor is constantly looking at their watch. You really want to fill up their time with really meaningful content of those meetings. All right. In our study, we had some students that were being supervised by, professors with 20, 25 students that they're supervising, and they just didn't have a lot of time to spare with their students. So the students had to really learn that the more prepared they were for their meetings with their supervisor, whether it was a formal meeting or even sometimes an informal meeting, just go have lunch with them and, discuss certain issues. But whatever it was, they made the most of that time that they had. Whenever you present work to your supervisor, whether it's a draft of a proposal or it's a working paper, a journal article, whatever it is, really present it as best you can in as polished a format as possible, as polished a version as possible. Okay. And this also relates to the fact that supervisors don't have as much time to really go through in fine detail a lot of students' work. But the better that you the better the quality of the work that you present, it will help tremendously in facilitating the process. Okay, so really put your best foot forward. Try to polish your work as much as possible before you submit it to the supervisor. Remember that when you present work, whatever it is, it's a representation of you, of yourself, and so you really want to put your best foot forward, and that will also show a commitment to the supervisor. So the supervisor will feel that you're invested in the process, and they will be more willing to reciprocate and put in the time to really help with the piece, whatever it is. Be persistent but respectful. Okay, so it's okay. I mean, I don't know. Every university is different. The culture is a bit different, and the culture of supervision is also different. And again, these are sort of findings from a study that was done at my university. So to the extent that they apply to your university, you'll have to decide on that. But what we found was that students that were persistent yet respectful, professional, and respectful of supervisors' schedule and constraints, they had the most success. Supervisors don't mind when students, are persistent and reminding them of scheduled dates, scheduled meetings, and so forth. It shows, the supervisor like to see that the students are really invested in the process and that they're serious about it. But of course, you have to be respectful and mindful of, the fact that your supervisors have a lot on their plates. Okay. So there's a lot of ways that we can, that students can invest in managing their supervisors through helping to manage the time and accessibility of the process. The third one, another sort of manifestation or element of management, is managing academic compatibility. Okay, so what will you do if your supervisor doesn't necessarily share your same passion for the topic you're studying? And this occurs a lot in, I think, universities in this part of the world. I've found in our university in Malaysia, other universities in Malaysia, and I'm assuming it happens in Indonesia as well, that sometimes there's not the best match between a student and a supervisor, but sometimes as supervisors, we're sort of required, or we don't really have much choice, only because of the fact that we take in large numbers of students, and they need a supervisor. So sometimes we sort of end up supervising students where we may not really have the kind of expertise that we need to really supervise them as much as we would like, but we have to because of constraints and so forth. Okay, so what will you do as a student if your supervisor doesn't share that same passion for what you're studying, or maybe they don't have quite the extensive background in that area that you were hoping for? And it's quite often that supervisors will not be experts, and this happens a lot in our universities. So it's important to try to find a meeting point that is of interest to both parties. So again, flexibility here is really important. If you can't find, someone that's going to be able to supervise exactly what it is that you want to study, well, maybe there's a meeting point. Maybe there's a sort of negotiation that can take place, where you can find common ground that allows both of you to meet your interests, your personal interests and academic interests in what it is that you're trying to study. Okay. If possible, if your supervisor has research work going on, and they need, a graduate student to help them with that research, definitely, if it's something that is of interest to you, get involved. This is, I think, one of the best ways to form a strong working relationship with your supervisor, is to actually collaborate on work that the supervisor is leading, research work. So best just to ask them if they have any research ongoing, and they need a student to support them and help them, and get involved. That was my experience in doing PhD, and it made all the difference. I had a very, very busy supervisor who was responsible for a lot of things, not only supervising students, but he was also administrator and so forth. But because I was his RA, his research assistant, I had that sort of privilege of being with him every day, working closely with him, And so it really afforded me a lot of advantages that a lot of his other students did not have. And so if you can do that, and sometimes that requires you to sort of sacrifice a little bit in terms of maybe it's a topic that's not quite what you were hoping to study, a little bit different than your area of interest, but at the end of the day, it might actually help, and you might, broaden your sort of interests in that in what he's doing, and it will definitely reinforce the relationship between the two. Be resourceful. Students nowadays really need to be as resourceful as you can. So don't rely solely on your academic supervisor. Consult as many other academicians as you can who might have certain areas of expertise your supervisor does not. We do get students, unfortunately, that think that their supervisor is going to be the end-all, be-all of their acquired knowledge at university. And they think that everything comes from that one individual. And it cannot, of course. And so students need to be resourceful. You need to go outside, you need to speak with other scholars, other academics, other students. If you need to, practitioners, anybody that can help you to better understand or work through whatever difficulties you're having with your study. But this idea of resourcefulness is a very, very important characteristic of successful graduate students. Right? It requires agency. It requires you to really take control of your own path, your own sort of research path and goal. All right. So be as resourceful as you can. Make use of any and all resources at your disposal, and that will also help your supervisor as well, because it won't place all the burden on them, and they will feel more freed up to focus on what they're good at, which will, of course, contribute to that element of your study. Okay, so managing academic compatibility was another big finding from our study, the different ways that students do this. The final finding or theme from our research was the one that usually takes precedence if you read the literature on supervision and relationships with supervisors, is managing personal relations. What will you do to ensure that your personal relationship with your supervisor is professional and amicable? Supervision is a human relationship, right? It's a relationship between two people, and there needs to be some personal chemistry for it to work. Okay, and we read a lot about this in the literature on supervision in higher education. And so there's a lot of things that students can do to try to make that happen. Well, one of the things we found from our study was that students that dedicated themselves to their work really took the work very seriously and showed that. In other words, the supervisors knew that their students took their work very seriously. That really helped to facilitate the relationship. Supervisors, we want serious students. We want students to really take an interest in their work. We don't want students where we feel we have to constantly be on them and nagging them, and it's like pulling teeth. This is the kind of relationship that's going to be more often than not strained when it comes to personal interaction and chemistry. And because it is a working relationship. At the end of the day, it is a working relationship, and you're working towards a goal, an actual outcome, which is a thesis and completion of the program and whatnot. So dedicate yourself to your work. If you cannot dedicate yourself to your work, maybe you need to rethink. Is this really the path for me right now? Is this the time of life in my life where I can really devote myself to this type of project? Do I need to sort of change my certain aspects of my personal life to devote more time to my studies, et cetera, et cetera? There's many ways that you can do that on a personal level. But dedication and showing dedication really helps the relationship move forward. Use your supervisor. Use is not a very good word, but utilize, use, take it, interact with your supervisor more as a reference and a guide and a sounding board, and not so much as a personal tutor. In other words, in relation to what I said earlier, I mentioned earlier, don't expect the supervisors to do everything for you, and don't expect the supervisor to provide you with all the answers to everything out there. Okay, your supervisor is a reference, a guide, a sounding board, someone you go to bounce ideas off of and get feedback on your ideas, your arguments, your proposals, and so forth. But they're not gonna hold your hand and do everything for you. They're not gonna spoon feed everything to you. Okay, and so it's important that, again, this also has to do with expectations. The first finding, the first thing, that we have the right and the correct sort of expectation about what a supervisor is and what they are not. Okay, and so in most higher education settings, academic settings, the supervisor is not going to be, there to handhold. In fact, in some universities, I had colleagues. I had one colleague specifically. She's retired now, but she did her PhD at Cambridge in the UK, and she actually only met her supervisor once throughout her entire PhD study. She only met him once. This supervisor is really an academic superstar. He travels the world all the time, and he's rarely on campus. Has very, very, very little time for students, just because he's an international, well-known international scholar, and he's got so many other commitments. And so she literally had to meet him. The one time she did meet him during her PhD study was she had to spend the night sleeping on the stairwell outside his office in order just to meet him at about 6 a.m. the following day. Because he said if she wasn't there on time, that he would not be able to see her. So she literally spent the night sleeping on the stairwell just so she could meet her supervisor. And that was a very, very traumatic experience for her, actually. She actually was crying when she was telling me the story. And of course, we don't want to have that kind of an experience in our postgraduate study. Okay. So it's important that we have clear expectations of what our supervisors are and are not. As mentioned earlier as well, be respectful and professional, but don't shy away from engaging in intellectually meaningful discussion. This is one of the roles of the supervisor, a very important role, is to, engage in that really meaningful intellectual discourse about the research that you're planning on doing, on your development, on your progress, and so forth. Okay, so supervisors, supervisors tend to like students that, again, take their work seriously, and are also willing to engage intellectually in the work. Okay, especially if it's work that is of personal interest to the supervisor. They're going to be much more inclined, to really embrace what you're doing, if you can take that sort of intellectual interest in it, and be willing to really engage in it. Be open to new ideas, but defend whatever ideas and arguments you might have. Look at things from different angles, different perspectives, and so forth. Okay, so this is also part of it, feeds into the sort of personal relational aspect of the supervisory relationship. Okay, so this is what we found from our research. So to sort of sum it all up, I'd like to just give a sort of case study of one individual student that I had a few years back. So this student, his name is Sam. Sam, the PhD student, and he was one of our PhD students from Nigeria, and he's now a lecturer there back in Nigeria. And he did a very interesting study on career development among Nigerian professors. And so I just want to use Sam here just to sort of accentuate and give an example to some of the things that I just presented, some of the findings from that study, because I think he really exemplified a lot of those findings very well. I wouldn't call Sam an ideal PhD student. I don't think there really is such a thing as an ideal PhD student. Students are all different. As human beings, we're all different, and different students have different strengths. Okay, but in terms of some of the things that Sam did, the way he approached his study and his experience as a postgraduate student, I found were really sort of like best practices in a certain sense. And I just want to highlight some of those things here. So Sam was timely with his work. So, for example, if the supervisory committee asked for him to submit his chapter 1 by a certain date, he would usually do it. He was rarely late with his deadlines. But he also was not the type that felt like he had to rush through his program. And we get a lot of students nowadays, and of course, some of this is because of external constraints. They have scholarships and they have to finish within a certain number of semesters, or they have other personal constraints that require them to speed up their process of their study. But Sam was really determined not to be one of those students that, I have to finish in 6 semesters. He had the luxury in the sense that he was self-financed, that he didn't have those external pressures, although he did get some scholarship money. So he did have some external pressure. And he did finish on time. He finished, I think, within 7 or 8 semesters, which is for PhD is pretty good. But the way he used his time, was of much more benefit, because he made sure that he made use of his time as a postgraduate student. So it wasn't necessarily the time constraints that he was working with or working around. He made sure that he made use of his time, and I'm going to explain how in a minute. Sam was polite, and here I don't mean polite. Maybe polite's not the right word. He was professional, and in sort of the Islamic context, Islamic world, we would say he had good adab, okay, with his professors, his lecturers. But at the same time, he was a very engaging student. He would come, ask questions. He was challenging. He would challenge ideas. He really loved to engage in intellectual discourse around the work that he was doing, the work that we were doing. So his adab was not a passivity that, he just accepted everything we told him, and he was afraid to give his personal opinions and ideas and views on things. No, he was a very good student in the sense that he was always engaging in the intellectual aspects of the work, but he did have good adab, which we appreciated. We appreciate as and again, it's professionalism. He had a very strong element of professionalism to him. Sam was very eager to learn, more so than most, I would say, but more so than 90% of our students. He was always trying to learn. Whenever there was a seminar in the university, in the faculty, even internationally, he would go to many different international seminars, programs. He was always trying to soak up as much knowledge as he could. I had never seen a PhD student that was just so eager to learn. And it really strengthened him as a student. By the end of his 3 or 4 years, you could see how that had really helped him to mature his thinking, etc. And in relation to that, he took advantage of all types of learning opportunities. So he wasn't just fixated on, this program I'm going to go to because it's related to my study. We get a lot of students that if they're in a forum where the discussion is not about what they're studying, they sort of put blinders on, and they say, this is not related to my work, so I don't really need to pay attention. That was not Sam. He wanted to learn all the different research designs out there, research methods. He really just wanted to learn, as long as he found that it was of value to him and to his study. And so he was very open to learning many different things. And I think it made him a stronger student. Sam was incredibly resourceful, as I mentioned before. He rarely came to us with specific needs in terms of, he was just able to find different resources to help him to do what he wanted to do. And he was very proactive in doing that. He didn't wait. He didn't rely, come to his supervisors every day asking for assistance here, assistance there. He was always doing things. And we were sometimes shocked. We would get a message from him, and he's, Prof, I'm in Japan and I'm attending this conference on blah, 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 blah. And I was like, how did you even get funding for that? And, I found some funding online, and, very resourceful, very resourceful. He really went out of his way to find his own resources to do things. He was visible and reachable. We have a lot of students that disappear. They just, for 1 or 2 semesters, they're just gone, like out of thin air. They've just disappeared. Sam was visible. He was always accessible. Of course, he would go off on his own for, weeks at a time to do his writing, whatever. But whenever we needed to get in touch with him, he was accessible and he was reachable. And that's important because sometimes supervisors may want to contact students for certain things. And so it's important that students are available and visible. One of the things that he did, I think, better than almost all the other graduate students we've had is that he was always eager to help other students. You know, if he had learned something, it was like he was always there to help the next batch. You know, the younger students, you know, he would try and help them. And he was always trying to help. He would bring students to my office, younger students, just to meet me and have maybe discuss about their projects. But you could see he was sort of taking them under his wing and sort of tutoring them a little bit, sort of peer tutoring process that he really liked to engage in. You know, so, and of course he told me that he learned a lot by doing that. You know, by helping others, he was learning a lot. You know, so being a postgraduate student is not just about taking. It's not just about receiving knowledge and experiences and taking from others. It's also about giving back what you've learned, and through that sharing process, really developing, you know, your faculties and your ideas. All of this really sums up his dedication as a student. He was fully 100% committed to being a postgraduate student. All right. And again, he could do it. He had the means to do it. Many postgraduate students, they are working, you know, they're working while they're studying, doing part-time, they have families, other responsibilities. Of course, this is adult education, so it's inevitable. But regardless of your study situation, you know, again, being dedicated to it really makes a huge difference. And then lastly, he was very proactive in managing us. You know, he would request, you know, can we have a meeting soon? You know, how's my proposal coming along in terms of reviewing the proposal? And he would just check in with us, you know, just to see how we're doing. And I really felt like this guy was really managing us. But he was really on top of his study. He was on top of his study, his work, and that meant being on top of us because, you know, with the number of students that we supervise, it's easy to sort of lose track of certain students, right? And so for you students out there, you need to remember that you know, you have supervisors that are very busy. They don't mean to forget about you per se, but maybe you need to nudge them a little bit. Maybe you need to just remind them of these things. And these are elements of being proactive in management. So this is just a sort of case study, an example of one particular postgraduate student that I found to be very effective in how he went about managing his postgraduate experience and managing his supervisors. So that's from there. I would just encourage us all to reflect a little bit about some of these things. And for you students out there who are listening today, have you thought about your assumptions and your expectations about supervision? What do you expect out of your supervisory relationships? What assumptions do you have going into your program about the kind of relationship you're going to have with your supervisor? About the role that the supervisor is going to play in helping you complete your work? The assumptions about what role you're going to play in terms of working with your supervisor. Okay, so these are things I think we should all be reflecting on. And after what you've heard, can you identify your own strengths and limitations that might impact your relationship with your supervisor? Okay, so thinking about yourself a little bit, your strengths and weaknesses, some of the things that I've mentioned, do you find it maybe to be a bit intimidating, this idea of having to manage my supervisor to some degree in different ways? Or maybe I'm not as dedicated as I thought I might be, or maybe I need to be. Maybe I need to rethink about that. Any of those things that I've sort of thrown out there, you may want to just go back and think about. Postgraduate study is a great opportunity to really learn about yourself. You're going to understand yourself better. You're going to understand your strengths, weaknesses better. So the more you begin to do that, the better off I think you're going to be. All right. So that's important. And what fears do you have? I mean, let's be honest. There's going to be fears when you enter into a postgraduate program. So what are your fears, if any? Okay. And it's important to be in tune to those and to be cognizant of those and how you're going to address them. Okay. And some of those may relate to working with, you know, scholars at UIN University. Okay, so what fears do you have, and how do you plan to deal with those? So these are some of the things I think that we can all begin to reflect on, but especially the students out there who are beginning your study, beginning your program, things to think about. So that's all I have. I apologize for not taking up the full time, but I will open it up for discussion now.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Latif is very detailed and a lot of information we gain here. So yeah, to shorten our times, I would like to give the time for Professor Ting Wang from University of Canberra, Australia. Professor Ting Wang, time is yours. Okay, there she is. Yes. Okay, welcome, Doctor. You still unmute. You still mute your. Yeah.
Still mute.
Yeah, you're still mute your speaker thing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now,
right.
How can I share my screen? Have a look. Share.
Okay.
Does they work?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, all good. Thank you so much. And well, thanks to Professor Stephen Cross for giving such an insightful, interesting presentation. So hello, everyone. I know that you are now in your... So what's the time in Jakarta now? 9? Is 9:30?
Yes, it's almost, yeah, it's 9:45.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks Wumi and for being the moderator. Thanks everyone for attending the international webinar. And firstly, I would like to acknowledge all the people who have been working so hard behind the scene to make this international webinar happen. So as I listened to the rector's speech, I know that well, it's likely we have a webinar connection, and but unfortunately, and we will not be able to travel overseas. And for myself, I have been to Indonesia once. I visited Bali, and also I attended an international conference at the University of Yogyakarta. So I really enjoyed my experience in Indonesia, but I've never been to Jakarta. So I really hope that, and after or post COVID-19, I will be able to travel and to visit your beautiful country and your beautiful campus.
We are very pleasure.
Thank you. Now, how can I share this? So we start from... Or bear with me, because there's so many. How can I start from this one? Yep, that's good. So the title of my presentation is "Tell Me What to Do" and versus "Guide Me Through It." So I will be talking about supervising and feedback experience. And here's the overview of my presentation. So in my presentation, I will discuss the roles of supervisors and expectations. That's interesting. And actually, I haven't read anything about the previous supervisor. I did pick up some common themes and from his presentation about expectations and how to manage supervisors. So I hope that in my perspective and from my experience and supervising students in the Australian universities, but I do hope that you will be able to identify some common elements in my presentation. And of course, and I will also discuss the relationship between students and supervisors and how we can support the students to achieve academic success and manage the student well-being. And in my presentation, I will share the research findings of my research, a study which was conducted about 10 years ago about the feedback
experiences of doctoral students in my university. And also I will talk briefly about how you can collaborate and have joint publications with your supervisors. And I will summarize my presentation with some tips or suggestions for developing effective strategy. How do you define the role of the supervisor? Well, it's interesting when we look at the role of the supervisor. Actually, we have to see the roles of the supervisor, because when we look at the supervisor's role, actually, we need to consider a range of factors. For instance, what is the nature of the supervisory research? As a supervisor, am I supervising a PhD student or a master of education in my case, or master students? So what is the stage of the candidate? Is a candidate at the early stage of the PhD journey, or he or she has come to the writing up stage of the candidature? What is the knowledge and experience of the supervisor? And in my case, I have a 31 years experience in higher education. I've worked at the University of Canberra for 21 years, so I'm an experienced supervisor. And what is the knowledge and experience of the student? For some students or PhD students, they did have some prior research experience. For instance, some of them may have published in the national or even international journals. But for other students, they come to the study of PhD or master degree with limited research experience. And of course, the personalities of the supervisor will be different. You may have a very passionate, enthusiastic supervisor, or you may have a supervisor who is very calm, maybe a bit, not reserved, and sometimes maybe not really showing their emotions easily. So you can see how you can have supervisors with various personalities, and also you have students. As a supervisor myself, I have students who have a range of different personalities. And of course, whether other supervisors are involved in the supervisory panel. At my university, University of Canberra in Australia, for a PhD student or Master of Education by Research student, this student must have at least 2 supervisors. One primary supervisor, or the primary supervisor should be an experienced supervisor. Or if the primary supervisor is not an experienced supervisor without any PhD students and successful completion record, the secondary supervisor must be an experienced supervisor. And sometimes you may have an advisor on the panel. So that means that for a doctoral students or master students, they will need to manage the relationship with at least 2 supervisors, and sometimes 3 supervisors. So sometimes you will need to consider how to manage the conflicting or different feedback or comments from different supervisors in your supervisory panel. So that's another factor to be considered when we define the role of supervisor. And of course, we know that in different institutions and in different faculties, there will be different requirements for postgraduate or doctoral students. So my next question is, which role do you prioritize when you think about the role of your supervisor? And of course, we know that the supervisor may take a range of roles depending on the different circumstances and the various stages. For instance, your supervisor is a coach. he or she would advise and develop the research expertise of his or her research students. And another role is mentor. We would expect the supervisor to be responsive, affirming, and encouraging during the student's candidature. Another role, facilitating and monitoring. And of course, as a supervisor, as a primary supervisor, it's my responsibility to monitor the progress of my research students. In my university, we have we call the annual progress report of the research students. So we fill in the form annually and before the end of this year. And as a primary supervisor, I will make comments and look at all the milestones, whether this student has achieved the milestones according to the plan. And if not, this student will be put in the, we call the development strategy program. And we monitor the progress. In terms of the milestones, we have introductory seminar, confirmation seminar, in-progress seminar, pre-submission seminar during the PhD students' candidature. So as you can see that, the very important role, one of the important roles as a supervisor, I need to monitor the progress and support my PhD students to go through to achieve the milestones. Another role as a supervisor I would consider is a sponsor. When we talk about sponsoring, here means as a supervisor, another role is I need to support the intellectual development of the research students and provide opportunities for their professional development. And of course, and for some students, particularly when they come to the later candidature, like the second year or third year, and they are very resourceful. They know how to navigate the space. But for most PhD students, because they are early career researchers, they haven't got the experience about how to reach out. So as a supervisor, I would provide advice to my PhD students. I would recommend some conferences and schedule, and which, for example, in Winnie's case, and she attended international conferences in Japan, presented nationally or in other universities. So the supervisor will need to provide the guide and advice and how to facilitate and how to support the research students to immerse, to have access to the much wider or even international academic community. So this is very important. My next question is how to manage or how to address mismatched expectations. So as you can see from my explanation, supervisors actually take on a variety of roles. And also at various stages, a supervisor may play the role of a coach, mentor, facilitator, critical friend, sponsor, director. So sometimes we do note and we notice that there are mismatched or misunderstood expectations between student and supervisor. So how can we manage this? My advice is communicate, communicate, and communicate. So we need to have open communications and clarify the expectations. How to reconcile competing interests and demands, as introduced by or as explained by the first presenter, Professor Cross. He mentioned that, well, nowadays, the academics, the professors are busy. Yes. In Australia, yes, I'm busy, and my colleagues are busy. And we have sometimes may have competing interests and demands. And how can we manage this? According to the research evidence suggests that research students value the affective dimensions most. They would appreciate the support from their supervisors. They want to have access to their supervisors, availability of the supervisors, and they want to know that actually the supervisors show interest and enthusiasm about their research project. The next point I would like to highlight is we need to acknowledge the power relationship between a supervisor and the student. And also we need to understand the possible impact of this power relationship on the experience of research students. It is very important for us to balance the supervisor's interests and priorities, and also the priorities and interests of the students they supervise. So we need to navigate this space. My next question is how to foster mutual respect and trust. And of course, as a supervisor, I'm eager, and I should understand my students' background, personality. If my student is from another cultural background, like Umi, and Umi is from Indonesia, so I've learned, a lot from Umi about the culture and some customs in Indonesia. So the number one, thing for me is like, I need to connect with my students. I need to know my students, him or herself. And of course, as a supervisor, I'm supervising a person. I'm not just supervising a research project. So for me, it's important for me to connect with my students. And then I provide guidance, not only in terms of intellectual, academic guidance, I also provide direction and support, including emotional support for my students. So all these points are key to have mutual understanding and mutual respect. As I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, communication is very important. So for the supervisor, we need to have strong communication skills, and we need to show empathy to our students. If my students, or if a student is from a different cultural or linguistic background, and we need to adopt more culturally sensitive approach in supervising. Again, how to manage this? Establish trust and psychological safety. So that would mean that, well, for this relationship, the supervisor and the student will need to feel comfortable. So if the student is fearful and is not comfortable, this would not be good for establish, or we mentioned having this mutual trust and this healthy or productive relationship. My next question is how to support research students' academic success and their well-being. Of course, it's very important. It's crucial to clarify the roles of students and supervisors and how to manage their expectations and how to manage the relationship. We need to discuss the different expectations in order to avoid misunderstanding or future misunderstanding. We need to set boundaries and limits in managing this relationship. I saw one of the questions and in the chat room, and one question is, well, and how to manage this, and how long, like in terms of how often do we meet the students, and how can we manage that? So when we look at the set boundaries, I can give example. So, and how often do you meet with your students? Normally, and for the student early stage, for example, in my case, and I'm now supervising a student who is going to give a introductory seminar on Monday in a few days. So before the introductory seminar, and we actually set up weekly meetings, sometimes like 3 meetings in a week, because introductory seminar is her first milestone. So the frequency of meeting, of course, is much higher than the frequency during the data collection stage. And setting the limits, I explained to all my PhD students. I would expect them to come to the meeting with something. They are expected to send me a draft or a few paragraphs, sometimes will not be enough, and a few pages or draft or the plan at least 3 days prior to the meeting, so that I will have the time and to go through and provide some feedback. So I will be very reluctant to come to the meeting when the students and give me a page of, that's 2 or 3 pages and she or he has just completed. I will need the time to process this information. I will need to provide, pertinent, constructive feedback. So I can't just read on the spot. It's not just like meeting minutes. So this is highly, high level thinking and high level intellectual work. So as a supervisor, so you will know exactly, and of course you will need to negotiate with your students how to set the boundaries and the limits and during this candidature. You assess the students' knowledge of the discipline of the research area, and you need to identify some gaps in the students' knowledge, and then you provide feedback for the students to have access. For example, go to learn how to use EndNote to process your references, or read more in literature review, or read more in methodology. So as a supervisor, you will need to provide this kind of high level guidance. And of course, as I mentioned, the regular meetings will be important. And also we need to record the decisions made during the meeting. So I will have another slide about meetings later on. So in summary, so it's like we need to provide support, academic support, and show empathy for the students to guide them through this process. Now I would like to share the findings of my research. So this article was published in Active Learning in Higher Education about 10 years ago. At that time, and I worked with my colleague, I interviewed 10 international doctoral or PhD students in my university. We specifically examined the students' writing or thesis writing and feedback experience in their doctoral research. So according to the literature, we know that the feedback from supervisors plays a very important role in assisting research students' development through their academic research journey. As we know that it's a long journey for PhD students, on average for 5 years. If we are doing that part-time, maybe longer, 6 years or 7. So students can benefit a lot from engaging in intellectual discussions with their supervisors through this feedback process. So the supervisor helps the student to go through the research journey towards becoming an independent researcher and a competent scholarly writing. So feedback experience or feedback process is highly important when we look at the PhD or doctoral research supervision. And of course, it will have implications on supervising master students. I know that many of you supervisors or academics from other universities in Indonesia, in Jakarta, we also have many master students, and some of you may wish to proceed to pursue your PhD study either in Indonesia or elsewhere or in Australia if you want. So that's why it's about this experience or the perspectives would be helpful and for you if you are a master student. When we look at the distinctive features of feedback, we know that feedback has a constant, ongoing nature with different functions that permeate the student's entire research journey. The feedback process allows a supervisor to communicate the ideas, the perspectives, and engage the research students in the intellectual conversations. And the supervisor provides coaching, mentoring, modeling, and scaffolding through this process. So as we understand, we need to clarify the expectations. We also need to negotiate the meanings in this space because we acknowledge the complexity or the messiness of this space. I would like to explain the emotional impacts of feedback on students. As we know that receiving critical or most of the times we call constructive feedback can be emotionally difficult for writers, not just only for the PhD students or research students, even for myself as a professor, as an experienced researcher, receiving critical feedback can also be emotionally difficult, challenging, and frustrating. For instance, I published in international journals, and when I submitted, manuscript to a journal, and then I waited for 2 months, and then I received the feedback. As you can imagine, when I look at the feedback, most of the times will be, well, this paper will be accepted subject to revisions or subject to major revisions. And then you can see a long list of the feedback. You need to refer to this reference, or you need to, have you clarified this? I don't think this meaning is clear enough, whatever. So for the first day, well, when I first read the feedback, it's emotional, challenging, and difficult for me as an experienced writer. So normally I will put aside for 2 or 3 days, and then I go back, I look at the feedback. Because we know that the emotional impact will be huge on the students if they are not experienced researchers. We know that feedback can be counterproductive and damaging to students' self-esteem. And this may negatively affect their learning outcomes. And some students will say, oh, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. I can't do it. I'm frustrated. Well, in this case, don't take it personally. So this feedback is not about yourself as a person. It's about your piece of work. It's about your draft. It's about your draft paper or maybe a draft proposal. So it's like we need to look at acknowledge the emotional impacts on the students. Interestingly, according to the literature, according to the research evidence, and also this has been confirmed in my study, students with higher self-esteem, they tended to have a positive attitude to being assessed and receiving critical feedback. Some students with lower self-esteem, they tended to perceive the comments, even intended to be positive, as negative. They took it as a personal attack on themselves. Feedback experience. So we acknowledge the importance of attending to psychological factors involved in the feedback process and the students' emotional responses to the feedback. One of the most powerful and potentially dangerous dimensions of the students' feelings about feedback, as I mentioned, is the extent its impact on themselves as people. So some of them tended to take it personal. So as supervisors, we need to acknowledge students' emotions, their emotional response to the feedback experience, and look at those responses as legitimate and healthy reactions. And you, as a supervisor, you may, as I shared with Umi and with my other PhD students, yeah, sometimes I did feel frustrated about the feedback, but it's okay. It's just about this draft. It's not about yourself. You are still capable. You are working on it. You are committed to your research project. So these are the two different things. Now I'm going to revisit supervisory relationships, as mentioned by the previous presenter. We need to look at this relationship, and a social practice is actually embedded in supervisory relationships. The way feedback is given might suggest or create a different relationship between supervisor and the student. When we look at the supervisory relationships, we can categorize the relationships into two models. One is more like peer-to-peer model. In this model, the supervisor considers the research student as a practicing academic, as an early career researcher, and as a colleague. Well, in another model, which is the apprenticeship model of supervision, the student may be more passive. They may adopt a position of passivity and also let the supervisor to dictate or to direct the relationship. Now, when we look at the supervising international doctoral students in my study, actually, and we know that also this can be found in the literature, there are cultural differences in understandings and expectations of postgraduate research supervision. In Asian countries, including Indonesia, teachers are viewed as a final authority, and the students are expected to show high respect for the teachers. And of course, the students' cultural backgrounds, their prior learning experiences, academic competence, and their research capability may influence their perceptions of the power relationship in supervision, or either hierarchical or equal relationship. The findings from my study, and we have identified the two tendencies of the feedback experience emerged from the data analysis of interview transcripts of 10 international PhD students in my university. So there are two tendencies. One is frustrated and uncertain experience. Another one is inspired and confident experience. The analysis of the data also revealed the three main things emerging with these two tendencies: emotional responses, supervisory relationship, and the pedagogical needs. And here's the key finding of this research. So as you explained, there are three main things from this study. In terms of emotional responses, Our study, or the findings of the study, reveal that the feedback experience can be highly emotional for students. Both positive and the negative emotional responses to feedback from supervisors were observed from the students. The students' feedback experiences range from feeling frustrated and uncertain to feeling inspired and confident. In terms of supervisory relationship, students who had primarily negative feedback experiences reported an unequal power relationship with their supervisors. The supervisory relationship tended to be characterized by one of apprentice and master. For those students who reported positive feedback experiences, they found themselves in a more equal supervisory relationship, one of mentor and mentor. As for pedagogical needs, so this is a very interesting point. As we can see that, tell me what to do and guide me through it. Students in the initial stages of their research project tended to have lower self-confidence and a lack of academic competence in terms of academic writing and research capability. And for students with a higher self-confidence, they demonstrated academic competence and resilience in dealing with critical feedback. They expected the supervisors to provide guidance and challenge and reshape their ideas during the process. So they tended to take a more proactive attitude. So as for the frustrated, uncertain tendency, tell me what to do. Those are students, they regarded their supervisors as the final authority and who could have all this magic. They should provide the quick solutions to all their problems. So those students expected the supervisors to tell them exactly what to do. So these students, they appeared to lack independent judgment, or they lack ownership of their own research project and their own academic writing. As you can imagine, tensions and mismatches of expectations between those students and their supervisors were reported in my study. And then for the inspired and confident tendency, those students demonstrated their determination, they have higher self-confidence, and they have stronger academic competence. They have generally a strong sense of responsibility for their own research project, and they developed a more equal supervisory relationship, which focused on the mentor and the mentor or the mentee. Those students took initiatives and they engaged in critical conversations and intellectual dialogues with their supervisors. So as we can see that the feedback process can be highly emotional and frustrating sometimes. We need to acknowledge culturally embedded emotional responses of international students. If you supervise international students, and they would have these kind of responses to critical feedback. Therefore, for the supervisors and also for the students, how to manage the feedback process, how to manage the relationship, how to manage your supervisor, as commented by the first presenter. We need to have open communication, and we need to negotiate different expectations. So we navigate in this space. So there are differences in the nature and the amount of feedback students need at different stages of doctoral candidate, as I mentioned, in the early stage or before the students reach their milestone, and then there will be more feedback and more meetings and more drafts and more consultation meetings. All research candidates, we need to acknowledge that they may experience various emotional responses or feedback. The supervisors need to be aware and prepared to respond to the students' emotional responses in a more appropriate manner. The supervisors and the students need to openly discuss their expectations of the supervisory relationship and approaches to academic writing and feedback strategies. Again, I would like to highlight this kind of dialogic, culturally sensitive, and holistic pedagogical approaches are needed in order to ensure a more successful research experience or learning outcomes for the research students. Again, I would like to highlight some tips about the supervisor and the student meetings. Well, in Australia, we call the consultation meetings. According to the research, and also according to my own experience as an experienced PhD supervisor, regular meetings between the supervisor and the students predict timely completion. So this is highly important. So we need to look at the frequency of meetings, and then we need to explore, we need to clarify time for the supervisor to review the written work. As I mentioned, so if it's just a few pages draft, so I would anticipate my students to send the draft to me at least 3 days. But if it's like the draft chapters or the draft thesis, I would need at least 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks to review the draft. So depending on the task, you will need to negotiate with your student to clarify the expectations. For every meeting, we will need to know what is the agenda and how to keep the meetings on track. What was done, what was the questions, and what has been planned for your next meeting. So this needs to be documented. And I would expect my student either to send me an email with some dot points, a list of all these dot points, a summary of what was discussed, and some follow-up items, or who will be responsible for that. For example, and if I'm responsible, I will need to send these 2 articles to my students. That's my responsibility. And my student will need to focus on number 1, 2, 3. Therefore, in order to ensure effective supervisor and student meetings, here are 3 key principles I would highlight: clarity, consistency, and accountability. Now I will briefly discuss about collaboration with your supervisor and joint publication. And of course, I know that some of you are still working on your master thesis, possibly, or some of you are PhD students. That's my understanding. And for some of you are the supervisors. You may be very curious, and of course, and your rector mentioned this COVID-19 era time, and we will need to look after the students, supervisor, and we need to explore and how to have a collaboration with the supervisor. So that's all good. But as we all know that publication is not an easy job. And how can we collaborate with the supervisor? So number one, if you are working on your PhD thesis or you have just completed your PhD dissertation, you will need to consider the potential collaboration with your supervisor. So as a general rule, if you publish the findings of your PhD or master research dissertation, you as the research student, normally, and you should be the first author for this joint publication because you have done all these interviews and surveys. So you have done the research project and your supervisor has guided you through this process. So usually your supervisor is the corresponding author because the supervisor and he or she has published many articles in the journals, international journals. And in my case, I know the process, I know which journal we should target. And I know all the process, how to submit the manuscript online, how to deal with communication with editors. So your supervisor would be in the best position as a corresponding author to manage all the overall research, publication process. And then as for your dissertation or your master thesis, and here's a question about how many papers can you publish based on the same set of the data. So here are two rules. Number one, publication of multiple papers based on the same analysis of the same set of data is not acceptable. This is not a good practice. However, if I know that for a PhD dissertation, for your finding chapters, normally you have 3 chapters on finding and it could be 5 chapters on finding. You can publish in the form of 3 or 4, most of the times could be 2 papers based on the key findings of your different chapters and put them into separate papers. And also you need to be aware of the importance of not to engage in self-plagiarism. You can't repeat yourself and use a large chunk of the data on the same descriptions in different papers. So the new interpretations should be presented in different papers, and there should be full cross-referencing within those papers which are based on the same sets of data in your PhD or your master dissertation. And of course, as a supervisor, and so here's the role comes again as a sponsor. So as a supervisor, in my case, this is my responsibility to support early career researchers, to facilitate, to mentor them, to have more publications. To sum up,
Apologize,
this is my,
it's 3 minutes more for your time.
Yeah, so just 1 minute.
All right.
To sum up, developing effective strategies. And as I mentioned, this is a summary. We need to manage multiple roles and expectations and manage power relationship. And we need to be respectful, realistic, resourceful, and resilient. And of course, how to develop all this, manage all these complexities, communication, clarification, commitment, and compromise are important. So my argument is we need to change the mentality from tell me what to do to guide me through it. Good luck with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're so happy that we have two different perspectives of doing the research journey. From Professor Latif, we see how the student manage the supervisor. So, and from Professor Ting Wang, we see from the supervisor perspective. So we can, it is very complete information then. And perhaps the other, the third speaker will explain how the university as the institution will facilitate both supervisor and students on doing the research study. So I will give the time for Professor Dr. Dede Roshada MA. The time's yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. The second, I would like to take a time, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes, because everything has been explained by two professors from Latif has been very detailed about how to manage supervisor, and also from Professor Ting Wang also very detailed about how to manage the student by the supervisor. So it mean that everything about relationship between student and supervisor has been explained as all. I'd like to share a little bit about the students of master program. Then at the audience in this webinar are mostly a student from master degree in the Faculty of Education in English department. And also maybe some of them are teachers of madrasa, teachers of school that participate in this conference. And thank you for all the participants that still stay here until now, because all the participants until 206 until 206 and not less than it. So not reducing. The first thing I would like to say that the master programs, for what the goals, what the role of the master program. The first PowerPoint can be published. The first nice. That's the first. Master program is the master program in English departments. It is promoting the students, all the students, to be the professional teachers, to be the scientists, according to the regulation of our country, that the Perpres number 8 2012, that the alumni of master program should be the scientists, should discover new knowledge, new theory, or new technology in his thesis. So they are promoted to be the scientists. So not only the teachers in the school, but also he is one of the scientists that has the ability, has the capability and capacity to extend their research program, and has studied in his faculty and his department by supervising from the professional supervisor. And that is I think that is the role of the master program, or the function of the master program alumni, that they are going to be the professional teachers, and also they are going to be the scientists on his field, his or her field, and also that he is the master in his community, That in our country, that every subject matters. In the school and madrasa has the teachers associations. In every district, city, or others, they have the associations of the teachers in his subject. And we say MGMP. And the master degree, the teachers of coming from master degree also is master teachers. So he can help the other teachers, whether in the knowledge itself or maybe in the teaching strategies, teaching methodology, teaching evaluation, and so on and so on. And they have a regular meeting every month maybe. and they will be the master teachers to help the other teachers there. That is the function of the alumni of master degree in particularly in English education here. And the time for studying. Okay, time for studying. The time for studying that is due to the regulation. Due to the regulations, number 44, that the master degrees should be completely at least in 4 semesters to 2 years, and at much 8 semesters. So the student cannot finish his or her study before 4 semesters, before 2 years. And suppose probably to study before 2 years, before 4 semesters, his name will not be moved to the room because we know that students in Indonesia it is put in one database, in national database as students. And as the database of for the students master degree, it is in the database of national student and as master degree students. And before 2 years, he cannot move to the room of the graduation, because move to the room of graduation, he will be given the he will be given the number of certificates by the so he will not find the number of certificates before 2 years. And also after 4 years, after 8 semesters, and if he or she doesn't finish at 8 semester, he will be exiled and he'll be dropped out. But if he finishes at 8 semester, he will be moved to the room of graduation, and he will get the number of certificate, and he will be given the certificate from the university. So it is the time for you all the students in master degree in magister program in Faculty of Education, particularly in English department, that your time to study here between 2 until 4 years. You have to finish after 2, and you have to finish before 4 years, before 4 years. Okay, that is the time to study. So how, if you want to finish your study timely at 2 years, at 4 semester, I think you have to manage your time. You have to manage your time. How to make your time effectively for your study. I think ideal time for master of LT. Move. Second page. Move. Master PowerPoint. One more. Okay. Ideal time for master. That's one. Before this one. Year 1, semester 1. Semester 1, enroll your courses and become familiar with all academic regulations in your faculty, in your department. This is all for the student of master degree of English department here in this webinar, because I look at the list that mostly the participants coming from English department and also from the English teachers in madrasah and school, and maybe they want to know about our department, and maybe someday we'll be coming here to get to participate in our study here. So the first semester, enroll you enroll in courses and become familiar with all academic regulations, and as I communicate with the senior lecturers, you have to connect with senior lecturers in the department and begin collecting ideas for thesis research. Do not let to have the thesis, the title of the thesis research. Maybe as early as you can shopping ideas, collecting ideas about what I have to write, in this master degree, and then semester 2, enroll in courses, seek out an advisor because an advisor, it is supervisor, it is not all supervisors complement to your personality, but you have to seek who will be very, very suitable for us, complement to our personality, and then we propose to the department. That is not the culture, but it is the regulation. That is the process. The student can propose to the department. The student can propose to the department who will be my supervisor. Will be my supervisor because the supervisor has some personality and relationship between supervisor and student also, that is personal, very, very personal relationship. So it need to be complement one to another. And then discuss with the potential research titles with the senior lecturer, with the lecturer on your department, Department of English, the English education. Not in my department. My department is religious education. So I say you cannot be supervised by the professor from religious education, because knowledge out of them, because their knowledge is beyond your knowledge. So you have to be supervised by the lecturers, by the professor, by the associate professor from your department. So you have to seek early who will be your supervisor. And then semester three, pass all examinations, develop a research design. You have to develop research design from semester 3, and then initiate the research process. You can start here. You can begin research activities in the semester 3, and then in the semester 4 you can complete your research and then take final examination, defense your thesis. That's I think very, very manageable time, I think, for you. So it is you will not the reason why you cannot complete your study timely, why you cannot finish your study at semester 8, why you have to be dropped out from this department. It is cannot be understood because the time for you it is very wide and you have good opportunity to complete your study timely at 4th semester maybe. But I hope that mostly the students can complete conventional study at the first semester. So you have to manage your time. How to do it? Back to the PowerPoint before. Back. Nah, that was that one. Second, that one. After this, second page. Learn. That's this one. Define your goals. What are the pillars? This is the 5 pillars to be the successful students. To be the successful, define your goals. My goals is finish my study at 1st semester. It is precisely as I have done when I was magister students in this university also, because I was graduated from this university undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate, fully coming from this university. So I also decide my goal that I have to finish my master 2 years, precisely finish 2 years, because we are managing our time. So you have to manage your time. The first, what the subject, the priority subject that we have to get the A grade. What the subject we have to let it. But when I was a student at master degree, I have to maximum achievement at that time all the subject. So I have to manage my time to learn, to study, and so on and so on. Read, write, summarizing books, and so exposing my summaries to my class, to my peer group, and then that is what we have to do, what we have to do, so we can maximize we can maximize our time to be effectively to be supporting to finish, to complete, to success in our study. develop effective study habits. That is the habitual effect, the habitual action for us in the daily activities. What the effective habits of your study? Maybe that is one style. That is the style of me. That is, I have to read the book. I have to summarize the book. And then I have to expose my summarizing to my peer group. That is the habit of the study. And you can develop the other habit, and you will have the other habit. But the goals of this developing effective study habit, it is the maximum achievement in our academic achievement. Utilize your resource. Your resource today is very much. You have very rich resource today. You have a virtual resource, internet. You have physical books in the libraries. You have classmates. You have seniors in your department. So communicate, talk to the seniors, discussing with your classmates, with your peer group, coming to the library, to the physical book, and then take some maybe some relevant resource from virtual libraries, maybe from internet, and so on and so on. That is to utilize your resource. So you will get the maximum achievement in your academic. But don't forget to maintain your health. Because even you got the very excellent result of your study, but you are hit by a disease. That is the disease that when I was studying, it is very popular in my university at the time. It is SSO, stress, stroke, and out. A lot of the students stressful because we have a lot of the burden of the lecture of the professors, because at the time without computer, without internet, and so on and so on. So less resource. So a lot of us are stressful, and then stroke, and so on and so on. And even that we got the excellent achievement in academic, but we are sick, I think it is not very beneficial for our faculty. So maintain your health. Okay, let's next. How to succeed? Establish the topic as well as you can, as I have said before. Yeah, establish your research title as soon as you can. Maybe from the first semester, from the second semester, we have to decide, this is my title. You have to discuss with your lecturer, with your advisor, with the candidate of your supervisor, and promote and propose to your department, head of department, this is my professor. I propose this one to this professor. I want to be my supervisor, because yeah, and you can discuss with it. And then the second, assist. It means that that every professor in our university, they have a research project, even that is coming from this university itself, coming from the Ministry of Religious Affairs, or maybe coming from municipal office, or maybe coming from the international agencies that operate in Jakarta here. And you have to apply to be his assistant. What is it? To extend your experiences, to expand your academic experiences, to extend your skill experiences, skill in developing instruments, skill in analyzing data, skill in reporting, skill in presenting the result of the research. Maybe just assisting your professor. That is the good experiences, I think. Develop relationship. You have to develop your relationship with the others, with some institution beyond our university, beyond your faculty, beyond your beyond your department, or in whatever field it is. You can relate with them. Even in maybe with the enterprises, because I would like to say something that is very odd for me. Just 1 second. You know, Carrefour in Pasar Jumat. It is one big supermarket still operate until today. And who is the surveyor? The surveyor for Carrefour, it was me myself. And when I present the result of my survey about buildings to Carrefour in Pasar Jumatia in the front of the governor, some deans of the faculty of economy from Trisakti University and so on asked me, Dede, you can help me to teach in my faculty. What faculty is it? Faculty of Economy. Oh, I am coming from religious department. Oh, how surprising! It is very surprising. But you can relate, but you can make relationship with whatever is it. Just to extend your experiences, just to extend your skill, and just to extend your capacity and capability in research, and also in presenting, convincing the other people for the result of the research. So the governor allow to the enterprises to build Carrefour in Pasar Jumat, even it's in the city. Okay, communicate with your classmates, communicate with your senior, communicate with your lecturers. Do not too introvert in your department. So a lot of communication with your classmates, with your senior, with your department, with your lecturers, and so on. Choose an advisor as early as you can, because it should be complement to your personality. How to succeed? Maintain steady pace, but don't forget to take time for yourself. Okay, to take yourself. Yeah, it mean that stay on the top of everything. Everything should be done, should be implemented, should be done maximally, or precisely. It is the best as you can. But don't forget to take time for yourself. Consult senior members of your department whenever you have questions about the particular aspect of the learning process. Read until, this is my experience, read until your brain hurts. If your brain has hurted, you have to take a break. By what the ways is up to you. Maybe some of you is singing, playing guitar, and so on. Maybe some other you take ablution and then reading Holy Quran, so on and so on. But take a break and then continue reading, This is I think, because when I was student of master degree, I can read from 7 p.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning. So in the last all night we can do with my book, with my literature at the time, because I was still young. What's running in our university? This is what Umu said to me before, that what is running in our university, what the university provided for us. The university has required to all lecturers to work in the university, in the office of the university, in the office in the university, at least 2 days a week beyond the time for teaching. So the time for teachings, blah 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 blah, and 2 days beyond time for teaching, they are required to take the office here, to work in the office, just to serve the students. Maybe for consulting theses, for consulting dissertations, consulting some material in the learning materials, and so on and so on. And then also the lecturer here are required to have a research project every year. So and also have a publications, has a publication, international publication, at least one publications for every 3 years. That is the obligation. I think that's the requirement for the lecturer, for the professor, and for the lecturer. They should have the international publication, at least one publication for every 3 years. So the lecturers should work in the office 2 days, 9 hours per week. It means 2 days per week in the office at the faculty. So the availability of them, will be guaranteed by the regulation. So it is easy for the student to come to see him, to come to see her, and to consult his academic problem, to consult his thesis, so to everything about academic from the student with his or her lecturer or professor. And then what running as a university, to improve the academic environment, the university encourage a lecturer to conduct research as a means of networking, collaborative research. Even that Professor Razak said that UVM has been the research university that our university still not yet, even it is promoting to be the research university, but still not yet, because the regulation still confused. So the dean of the faculty, the department of the faculty, it is confused to make the program as a research university, So, but the research activities of the lecturers, it is the requirement, it is the obligation of them. So the student can come to see to see his professor, to see her professor, and then applying to assist them in the research activities, and so on, and also assisting in the publication, and so on. So it is very very beneficial to extend, to enhance the capacity, the capability of them as a candidate of the master degree of English education from the Faculty of Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. So in this context, students can work as assistant to their professor. Can work as the working as the assistant of their professor will be able to extend, to enhance their capability and skill in research, and then to ease their finishing their program, to finish their study. And maybe I hope with these ways that all the student or mostly the student from master degree, from magister program of English education in Faculty of Education can finish timely, maybe in the fourth semester, in the 2 years, because if you can finish your study timely at the first semester, it will be promoting the quality of your department, the quality of your faculty, and also the quality of your university. And the end, strive for progress, not perfection. Man in the street. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Dede Rashada. Okay, so we are very closing on the pre-Jumat. So perhaps I will just directly open the questions. I have some questions through the text, but previously I would like to open the questions directly from this platform to all the speakers. Yes, please. You may raise your hand and then mention your name and your institution if possible. Okay. Yeah, fine. So we just, is there any questions? Yeah. Okay. This I would like to read questions for all the speakers here. This is from Isma Hidayati. She wants to ask about how to make a good article and a good thesis, especially interesting title for master degree. So perhaps you can make any tips or any suggestion for that. Yeah, thank you. We start from Professor Latif.
Well, it's a kind of a hard question to answer in just a short period of time. Because
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it, really. Starting with choosing a good topic that's relevant to the field, and it's going to make a some sort of substantive contribution to that field of study, and then of course it should have a good structure. It should have a sound structure. And it should be well written, and there's just so much that goes into it. A bit difficult to really go into all the details here, but there's many resources now online, I know, for students in terms of academic writing, and for students that want to publish. So I would just encourage the questioner to do a browsing of the different resources out there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. How about you, Professor Ting?
Thank you so much for this interesting question. I think this is a very important question. It's not only for a master student or PhD student, it's an important question for every researcher.
Yeah.
So how to identify a suitable topic for publication? Number one, your original contribution. So this is very important. So what can you make? So what would be the potential contributions you could make to, we call the three aspects: knowledge development. What can you contribute to the existing literature?
Yeah.
Secondly, policy implications. So if we look at all the policy makers and in this space, what can you, so what would be the potential contribution and in this space? Policy development, policy making.
Yeah.
Another aspect you may like to consider is the practical significance for the practitioners, for the teachers, principals, or other practitioners or classroom teachers or higher education lecturers. So number one would be the potential contribution. Number two is very important. When we look at the topic or when we look at the quality of a paper, we look at the rigor of the research design. It's more like, how can I trust the results of your research? The tool you use is not valid. So you must have a very rigorous design. So of course, with the help of your supervisor. So this rigorous research design is important to judge the quality of the paper. Of course, academic writing. If we can't understand your sentence, no matter how fabulous idea you have, you can't convey your ideas to the audience. So from my perspective, this is a very quick answer. Yeah, potential contribution, the rigor of your research, and the academic writing and the quality of the paper.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ting. Professor Dede, please. You still mute your speaker, Prof. Okay.
As I have said before, that the master in Indonesia also, it is not labor market, not entering labor market, but he is the scientist. Scientist.
Yeah.
So what is the scientist? It is this new discovery of his research.
Yeah.
New discovery of his research and her research.
Yeah.
New discovery. It is so the thesis should find the new theory, new technology, new model, and can be contributed, as Professor Wang said, that contributed to the changings of the policymakers from the Ministry of National Education, from the Ministry of Religious Affairs, or from the ministry that managing the education at all.
Yes.
That is what that is the criterion, the first criterion, the good writing, the good thesis of the master degree. Even that is like PhD, it is same as PhD and master. It is like Professor Wang said that it is the same position, but a little bit different in Indonesia. That the PhD degree should lead the project of the big research, should be able to lead the big research project. Just like Umo, it because he is PhD, so she had to have a big project of the research and a leader of the project research. And members of the master. The members of the master. But master itself should find the new discovery, new theory, new technology, or new models, model of learning. For instance, model of learning English for the students of Indonesia.
Yes.
How to develop, how to make their pronunciation as nearest to the British pronunciation, American pronunciation, that is how to train them, how to educate them, how to teach them, how to train on how to teach. And it is need the model of teaching, and it is need find out by the research, very serious research. And the project research like that, it should be led by Umu, because Umu is coming, is PhD. So you have to be able to do like that. And the second, yes, as Professor Wang said, that it should be academic writing. For what academic writing? Because all are the written by PhD or master should be trusted by the readers. Yes, it is very expectative. Yes, it is very trusted. And how to make more trusted? It is academic writing, because based on evidence and citation and so on and so on. That is so the academic writing to enhance, to increase the trust of the readers, of the community, to the papers, to the result of master program. I think that all.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So we still have some questions here, but I'm sorry for all the participants if I'm not mention all the question. I just speak that is really related with our topic today. So this is from Yudi Ardian Rahman. So it's more like sharing the emotions here. The questions is how many time we have to share our idea to make sure, and how long we spend time wait our expectation run well and understand as well as possible. Yeah. So perhaps it also related with the other questions that is this Ulfa Dirhab? She's a PhD student. She asks, I think related with the previous one, that I just read it for you. Based on the all journeys of this, for all the speakers here, your experience, could you please share to us if we as a candidate of doctoral degree has a time when we feel frustrated to our research work, because this situation always happen to all students. So it's also happened to me. So sometimes feedbacks, questions from the supervisor is quite intimidating, sorry, Tingwang. and then it's kind of like consuming a lot of our energy and psychology breakdown on it. So is there any ideas from you to manage this? Thank you. Prof. Latif, yes, please.
Oh, I thought we were supposed to go in order again, so I just was assuming that.
All right, yes.
And it's a great question, and it's to me it's part and parcel of the process. Absolutely, there's going to be periods of frustration. It's a serious project. It's a lot of work, and I would just say you can expect it. I faced that many times in my PhD journey. I have not had a student that has not faced that. I'd be really surprised to find any PhD student that has not faced frustration at some point in the process. And I think that's one of the reasons why, a good PhD journey, there's a lot of growth involved. There's a lot of personal growth involved because of the fact that you do face those frustrations, but then you learn how to work through them. And I think, as Prof. Wong mentioned in her presentation, social support is a very big part of the process. You need a good support system and support network, and I've noticed that one of the things I've noticed the trends over the years is that, like when I was doing PhD 15, 20 years ago, there was a lot more social support among students themselves, at least in our sort of environment where I am. And that has sort of waned a bit, I think. Nowadays, people tend to do things on their own a bit more, and they face, I think, a lot more difficulty and frustration because that they lack that social support that they used to have, that we used to have more of, I think, previously. So yeah, I mean, I think you should expect it, and I think it is definitely a normal part of the process, although you have to have ways of working through it and learning to work through it. Sometimes just taking time off from it, getting away from it, taking a breath and a break is really helpful, and putting things in perspective. In my university, we have a policy where students are allowed to defer for 2 semesters. So sometimes I even encourage students to do that if they're having a really difficult time. And then they come back and they're refreshed and they can re-engage in it and so forth. So yeah, I mean, but I think you can grow and you can benefit from those experiences as well. So that's all I would say to that. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Professor Ting. Yes, you still mute your speaker.
Thank you so much for the excellent question. I have 3 points. Number 1, acknowledge. We need to acknowledge all kinds of experience are normal. You as PhD students, you feel frustrated. As a supervisor, I feel frustrated supervising students. So this is normal, like managing, Umi mentioned the metaphor of marriage. I also use this like a marriage. You can't expect that you will be in the honeymoon for 4 years. That's not realistic at all. So that's why acknowledge all kinds of experiences, joy, happiness, and inspiration, enthusiasm are great emotions. Of course, like frustration, anger, stress, this is normal. Otherwise, we are not human beings. So like anything else, we manage. Number 1, we acknowledge all kinds of emotional experiences are normal for you as a supervisor, as a student. So that's fine. And number 2, manage. We acknowledge that. We accept the fact this is a reality. We manage the reality. How to manage the reality? Number 3, be resilient and resourceful. I can tell you, I completed my PhD dissertation within 3 years and 3 months. However, for 6 months, I had no supervisor to look after me. My first supervisor, primary supervisor, was sick. My second supervisor never read anything I sent to her. And then I decided to change my supervisor, primary supervisor, the last year, 1 year before I submit, nearly the writing up stage. So it's like, I was frustrated, of course. But remember that you are the owner. You should have a sense of ownership of your research. The more independent you are, the more likely you can complete your PhD dissertation or master dissertation on time. Yeah. So it's okay. Manage the expectations. Yeah. Take it easy. Be resilient.
Resilience, yes.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Prof. Prof. Dede.
Emotional release, resilience. But the most cases that very, very offense maybe for the cases of the dissertation or thesis. It is the criticizing coming from outside beyond supervisor and students. It is. For instance, for the examiner made, and maybe from the outside examiner and examiner.
Yeah, examiner.
And then he still not knowing well about the characteristic of our knowledge.
Yeah.
Our knowledge. Yeah. So this misunderstanding. But in this misunderstanding, he correct us that you are wrong ways. This make our emotional stand, our attention, our emotional will be coming up. I think that we have to manage our emotion. That everything can take a lot of the advantages, and then maybe some beneficial for us. Everything that even that it is criticizing, very very hard criticizing, but maybe in any places, any kind, it is very beneficial for us. I think that is, again, it means that we can manage ourselves, our emotional.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. So perhaps this is the last question. So it's quite, pardon? Yes, it's quite interesting questions. It's about different interests for each supervisors, because some students have like a panel or 1 until 3 supervisors. So the question is how to unify, she said, the latest or the recent issue with the fields of knowledge that match with our interests when all the panels has a different point of view. Yeah, this is a question from Wahyu Ningsi.
Problem.
Yes. Okay. Prof. Latif, you may start first then.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question again?
Oh yeah. So sometimes one student will have more than one supervisors, and each supervisor will have like a different point of view or interest with our topic. So each of them sometimes give like different feedbacks. So it's become dilemma to the student how to unify these two different ideas from the panels. Yeah.
Yeah. In my experience, I think this is where the and I don't know how it works in your university, but there, like I know the others have mentioned, that there tends to be usually a main supervisor and then a co-supervisor or co-supervisors. So I think this is an issue for the student to bring to the main supervisor. And then one of the things that I had one student one time that was very interesting. He really liked to work independently with each of his 3 co-supervisors. So he used to go and do a lot of independent work. And what I found was that it led to a lot of disagreements, because rather than having meetings where everyone can come together and discuss their views and dialogue and work it out in a sort of collaborative way, it was sort of like just one-on-one feedback. And so he was getting very confused. And that was when we really suggested, stop doing that. Let's like Prof. Wong mentioned, having regular, a set of regular meetings where everyone is coming together and you can work out those differences there in the meeting. And that's I think really the benefit of having regular meetings is to really overcome some of these issues, and then having the main supervisor really at least be aware of that and do their best to help the student work through that.
Yes. Okay.
But it's a negotiation process. It definitely is.
Yes, communication, negotiating, these all things. Right. Professor Tings, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, I have 3 points. Number 1, change your supervisor.
Right. That's what I've done.
Change your supervisor. Okay. So it's like
you may not always have the choice.
No common ground. Change your supervisor. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because I can share with you, Wumi actually changed her supervisor. Yes. And
yes,
I was not, Wumi and did stuff for 1 year, but somehow because of the competing and different research interests, and then she requested to have me as her primary supervisor.
Yeah.
And when she started with me, I said, well, Wumi, if you change your supervisor, you need to change your research topic. Because my area is educational leadership.
That's another challenge then.
Yeah, so it's challenging. Well, Wumi, I said, well, leadership is really a lot to catch up. But, luckily we can meet in the front. So number one, don't be afraid of changing your supervisor. It's like divorce. If you get divorced, that doesn't mean that the two people are evil. No, they are not. The problem, they can't get along well for various reasons. I changed my supervisor as well. So it's okay. So I'm not so sure about the situation in Indonesia, but in Australia, in my university, it's okay to change the supervisor. I can still work with Umi's previous primary supervisor. So, and Umi's primary supervisor was actually on the panel, but of course, and I'm the main supervisor, spent most of the time, I guided, I took the primary role. So that's different. So number one, change your supervisor. Number two, change your topic. Change your topic. So it's like you try, so find the topic which both of you are enthusiastic about. Think about your PhD and your master thesis. It's like your baby. You need to love your baby. If you don't like it, why do you spend 4 years, 5 years? If you don't like it, forget it. Have a research topic which you are passionate about. So that's why, and also your supervisor would have expertise to provide the guidance. So change the topic is my second advice. The third one, meet in the middle. If you can't change your supervisor, if you can't change your research topic, identify, navigating the space. How can you compromise? This is not the ideal world, but we'll find the way to make it work.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Prof. Dede.
This is based on the experiences of the Faculty of Education, I think. Thank you, Supervisor.
Yeah.
But it is the third priority. The first priority is communications and communications. And then the second priority is make between two differences. It is take some what the relation between two, and then if we can tick the third ways, we will be approved by two sides. I think it will be better. But if we cannot do it, change the supervisor.
Okay. Right.
I agree.
So that's the final option then.
Our faculty.
Yeah.
Also, when I was a dean in this faculty, 2005.
Yes,
and I
you're right.
got the university 2009, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, this very nice, detailed, and very well-informed webinar.
I think Prof. Wang can do a study on that, the cultural differences in terms of changing supervisors, because I think because I think
research topic.
in Malaysian and
have a
Indonesian
research collaboration.
Well, no, I think in Malaysian and Indonesian universities, culturally, it's a little bit different in terms of the ease at which we change supervisors.
Yeah.
Divorce is the last option.
And for us, it's okay. Yeah, I managed my student who moved to another faculty. That's fine.
Yeah, it happens, but not so
I have
often.
another student, and actually who has just changed the supervisor, and I'm currently the primary supervisor. She changed her supervisor 6 months ago. That's fine.
Yeah, in Malaysia it happens, but just not that frequently. It's not seen as the first thing you do. Yeah.
You'll be the last option.
Number three.
Yes.
Number three.
But divorce is not haram, Professor. It's allowable. Then.
That's right. No, it is an option for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for all of you. So it's very standing applause for you guys. And so next, finally, we are very close to end of the session. So I really grateful to have three of you, and thank you very much for Professor Abdul Latif Stephen Cruz. Thank you very much for Professor Ting Wang, and thank you very much for Professor Dede Roshada. Perhaps we can have another time to chat about this again in more relaxed and more time. So really eager to hear all of your thoughts about these things. And before we closing, so we will have a ceremonial of awarding the certificate of appreciation to the three speakers. The award will be given by Dr. Ratna Saridewi as a head of Master Program of English of Education. Dr. Ratna, time is yours.
Sorry. The first appreciation will be going to Prof. Abdul Latif Stephen Kraus. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Abdul Latif, for your guiding and also ideas. Yeah, brilliant idea for us here. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
The second goes to Prof. Ting Wang. Thank you very much for your coming today, for sharing your idea. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The next and the last things is that our Prof. Dede Roshada, thank you very much for your fruitful ideas. And you also have coming to this webinar. Thank you again, Prof.
Welcome. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm really appreciated for this one. Maybe next time we are going to join again with the next more, higher topic, yeah, for this valuable event. Thank you.
Okay, see you.
Thank you, Dr. Ratna. Okay, so this is the end of the session and we will get ready for the next session, hopefully. Finally, I'm Umi Kulsum, PhD. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So the platform will be given again to Miss Hanifa. The time is yours.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dede, Prof. Ting Wang, and then Prof. Stephen.
Thank you very much, all of the speakers, for the amazing and insightful material for today. Moving on to the next session before we close, there will be next session, which is the introduction of Master Program of English Education. Just a brief, short introduction. It will be introduced by one of the graduate from the Master Program of English Education, Mrs. Dwi Jayanti MPD.
Excuse me, Hanifa.
Introduce
excuse me, Hanifa.
Yes.
Maybe we have what we call that. Maybe Dwi Jayanti only have introduction, and then we come to the closing, right?
Yes, just a brief introduction of our master program. Mrs. Dwi Jayanti, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you Hanifa for the chance. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning all. My name is Dwi Jayanti and I am a 2018 Master Program of English Education students. And Alhamdulillah, thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, I have completed my study on February 2021 this year. So on this occasion, I will invite you to get know master program. I will introduce you the master program of English Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, more closely, of course, the information about vision, mission, objectives, lecturers, students, alumni, and graduates of master program of English Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, will be presented in a profile video. You can check the profile video in Master Program of English Education website. The Master Program of English Education UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta website, as we can see here in the share screen, at https://mpbi-fitk.uinjakarta.ac.id. So you can see that, ladies and gentlemen. For further contact and information about Master Program of English Education UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, you can check into this website. So it includes the lecture information, students' activity, seminar and webinar, like this international webinar, academic activity, article clinic, thesis clinic, and also new students registration platform. So you can also check this link with the full information here. And also for those of who you want to continue your education at a master degree, you can register via this website link too here. And so what are you waiting for? Let's register yourselves soon and let's join us in Master Program of English Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Okay, thank you. I think that's all the information and introduction about Master Program of English Education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. For the next session, I will return to the Hanifah. Thank you, Hanifah.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dwi Jayanti, MPD. Ladies and gentlemen, now hopefully we can see more great graduates that pursue graduate studies in our program, in our master program of English education, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Now, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our agenda. We would like once again to express our biggest gratitude to our amazing invited speakers for delivering the insightful material. And we are also thankful to all of the participants who have joined this event, the international webinar. Before we close the agenda, there will be a short photo session. So I would like you to please kindly turn on your camera so we can have a photo session, and I will do the countdown. Maybe one of the operators can help me to screenshot the photo session. Right, so please kindly turn on your camera first.
There are these 6 screens here. I will make the first screen in 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Smile, everyone. Okay, maybe once more. Please kindly smile to the camera and turn on your camera.
We will take the second screen. 3, 2, 1. And then we move on to the third screen. We will take in 3, 2, 1. Next, the fourth screen will be in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Once again, we'd like to express our biggest gratitude on behalf of the organizers. Please forgive any mistakes and glitches that occurred. And let's close our event by saying Hamdalah together.
Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin.
Enjoy your day and maybe see you next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, solid team. Without you, I cannot stand it.
Thank you, Ibu.
Sudah pergi semua.
Don't forget to check the link, and don't forget to fill in the survey link for you to get the certificate of this event. Yeah, so please stand by on the WhatsApp group for further information. Yeah, you can leave the Zoom meeting, everyone. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Hani, Dwi, Nur, Albi, Bu Umi, Pak Didin, thank you.